Well, there's been mixed reaction to the president's cabinet changes. The Free Market Foundation's executive director, Louw, joins me now to explore more of that reaction. Certainly seems that we've moved out of a time when cabinet reshuffles were also accompanied by a huge tumbling of the rand, at least if today's anything to go by.
Well, that might be because there's a general belief that there's a lost opportunity. People are expecting President Ramaphosa to make bigger and more changes. For example, reduce the quantity of cabinet offices or government departments. We have something like 35 departments compared to the United States with 15, or Britain with 21, or Sweden with 22. So we have this massively bloated cabinet. For a relatively small economy in the world. And I want to say that I welcome, and I think many people do, Stella Ndabeni-Abrams' appointment to this ministry. And hopefully she will withdraw the somewhat silly, vague, uninterpretable, almost meaningless telecommunications amendment bill now before Parliament, which she was the deputy minister when that went in. She should take it back and start again and go back to the drawing boards because it's unworkable and, in fact, probably void for vagueness, which is another matter. And I suppose what people were hoping is that some ministers like Mokhonyane would not be reappointed.
But Tabile Dlamini, the DA, has that application in court?
Yes, so there's a disappointment, but I think that might be unrealistic. I think that this was really not a reshuffle so much as a necessary appointment given an unfortunate death, and a consolidation of two departments which should never have been separated in the first place.
One of the things that's coming out strongly, at least from the analysts that we've spoken so far, is that President Ramaphosa is being very cautious in how he maneuvers around the cabinet situation. But when it comes to the politics aside, so if we are not to at all consider ANC politics, which when it comes to the state we really shouldn't, is he acting in the best interests of South Africans, or is he acting in the best interests of his political organization, the ANC?
Well, one can argue that he's not acting in the best interests of his organization or the party, because it will be by way of making bold changes and improvements that he might increase the chances of the party politically. But that, as you say, is a political analysis. In terms of the country and the economy, unfortunately, he's been talking the right talk but not walking the right walk, saying that we need to be investor friendly and we need to not harm agricultural production and we need to attract investment and we need to create jobs and we need economic growth. All of that is correct, but so far not one single regulatory change has been made that would bring that about. In other words, what you have to do is stop talking and go to the drawing boards and say which policies are discouraging investment in financial institutions, for example, the Twin Peaks policy, which policies are preventing creation of jobs, labour relations policy and minimum wages, which policies are discouraging foreign investments, uncertainty regarding property rights, exchange controls which should have been scrapped long ago, tax policies. So what has not happened, I'm afraid, is that the President has been generating a lot of positive vibes and chemistry, especially amongst investments, so-called Ramaphoria, but has not yet announced one single concrete change to policy. One of them might be for the new Minister of Communications to withdraw this bill which is anti-investment, anti-business, in telecommunications.
Well, certainly the President would probably not agree on the issue of the minimum wage, because the changes there he's been 100% in support of and, in fact, led some of those negotiations. And I imagine that it would be the same on the issue of property rights with the constitutional amendments that we're now seeing to Section 25 of the Constitution.
Yes. He might well be, but the point is you can't say then you want jobs. If you make it expensive to employ people...
But do you feel that they are mutually exclusive?
Oh, you could have a minimum wage, provided the minimum wage is set at such a low level that it doesn't, as all the government's own research says it will, increase unemployment. All that's an issue is the quantity of unemployment. So What I'm saying is you can argue about whether the labour law is good or bad, and minimum wage is good or bad, whether property rights expropriation without compensation is good or bad, but you cannot say that it will attract investment, and you cannot say that it will generate economic growth. You cannot say it will create jobs. It won't. It will do the opposite. Whatever the arguments for these policies might be, they are certainly anti-growth and investment and job creation.
And what for the yields that then the presidency's envoys have been announcing as a result of the amount of investment that different big corporations are making into the country? We had that investment summit recently where big corporations were announcing how much they're each going to be putting towards this plan. Are you saying that projects or initiatives like that, in fact, have been in vain or are in vain, and that we should expect no real returns from them?
No, not at all. They're wonderful. And I think it's great that he's doing that. I just want to put it a little bit in context. We're talking about, say, for example, 200 billion rands of investment, and that's better than nothing. And it's the question is how much of those investments are decided a year or 2 years before. By the time you make a $1 billion investment, you've spent a lot of time researching it. So it's not clear how much of this is truly new or was simply in the pipeline and now announced. But the other place to put it in context, the cost overrun on the budget of one power station, Kusile or Medupi, is more than all of this investment put together just on one power station. So we must understand that in an economy of 5 trillion rand GDP, and with a budget of 1.5 trillion or so rand, 200 billion is relatively small. And I'm not belittling it. It's good. This is great. And I'm all for the president doing it. But what I would like, what we as South Africans need the president to do, is to say we want to attract investors, and these are the changes we are making to make investment attractive. So far, absolutely no changes have been announced or made or even under consideration. Every change that is under consideration is anti-investment. Regardless of whether it's good or bad, it's anti-investment. That's what we have to be clear about.
All right. Well, thanks for giving us your view on Newsnight. That was the Free Market Foundation's Executive Director, Louw.